Tim showed you container. I'll probably go back into that in just a bit. But let's take a look at purchase order, because I did some tweaking in there. I think in terms of data entry, this, of course, is one of the heavier, more heavily used screens for data entry. So I think having this be so dramatically reduced in terms of the amount of tabs, the amount of tabbing, the amount of scrolling, the amount of wasted space, I think this is going to be probably, data entry-wise, one of the immediate impacts that will be most beneficial to anyone who's seen this for the first time. At least that's the theory. So we consolidated at least 2 tabs here, perhaps 3 here. I think that we had a general information and an information tab. Don't ask me why there was 2 tabs for almost the exact same name and purpose. But we have consolidated, thankfully, into one. On the left-hand side is what was originally that information tab, I think. You've got trader, prepare, POD, et cetera, and on the general information tab was a lot of this address stuff and additional fields of relevance to that particular order. We also combined, again, this is dating back, going back to Tim's theory of the default version. We're looking at the default version now, or new default, I should say. This is, any customer signing up with us in the future will get this version. That's sort of why we call it the new default. They'll get that left-hand side, which has price and remarks. Has all the price information field, I think was the name of the
price and payment term.
Price and terms tab. Forgive me. Was consolidated again onto this left-hand side, where all the additional information now appears. I have a customer who's not here in mind right now, but they specifically, they've said to us, we have additional charges that extend beyond just 2 charges on a particular order. It could be as many as 10. We set up 10 fields for them to enter those in a different area on a separate tab. But for right now, these changes and labels they do not use because we didn't have the ability to hide these fields before. But on their install, assuming they're interested in doing so, I would think that I'm going to just hide these fields now because there should never be any value in these because it would confuse the user who should be entering all their additional charges on a separate tab, up to 10 in their case. So this is another real-life example of how people could see real benefit of this, again, pretty quickly. One other note that I'm not sure has been made clear enough, that is that once this is given to you guys, and Tim mentioned the 2-week thing, for those of you on web service right now, you can make the choice essentially whenever you want to. We have one customer, we have one customer who's running it in what we call beta right now. I would like to think we've had fairly positive feedback. We had a little rough patch last week, or earlier this week. So I'm not necessarily quite as gung-ho about people moving over to it in the next week, to be quite honest. But I think with Miguel being on beta and us messing around with this as much as we have the last month or so, that if somebody said 2 weeks from now on web service, I want to be on this version, I want to use the new standard, that would be, it's really a matter of flipping switches at this point to get somebody to a new standard that's on web service. A lot easier. Now, the people that are network installs, of course, there is the difference in that we have to access your server and upload the new version of the application. There's a bit more work involved, and I also would say rolling back to a previous version it would be more difficult for you guys. I would say let's hold off for about a month, if I were to be honest with you, about what would make me feel more comfortable about your version. But if the enthusiasm is just so great, as I hope it is, for this amongst the users once you bring it back to them, that it's worth a little bit of perhaps rough patches over the next couple of weeks, then of course we'll be able to put the network version out as well too, because we're not afraid. And I don't think, well, I don't know that I need to go any further on that, but again, the web service, guys, if you're ready to go, we're ready to go. Just give us until Monday. Once half of the office is back in the office, the other half of the office. So that's just an aside there to talk about how to get this, again, 4.0. If you talk to anyone in the office and mention 4.0, they'll know exactly what you're talking about.
And Andy, what about server versions, account integration?
No impact on the account integration. Definitely not touching that at all. And I will talk, there is quite a bit of discussion later on in the next 2 days about the integration, how to improve it, modify it, change it, those kinds of things. So there's more to come there, but as far as the impact on 4.0 on the account integration, zero. Shouldn't be any, there's no totally different sections of code and no anticipated changes there. Alrighty, page 2. Actually, I was on page 2. With controls, I already talked about that. Some of that you can see we started to play around with a little bit just because there are some fields that are probably overkill in terms of size of what's needed. But then there's some that we actually have seen, where it's just not long enough. So that's why we added this whole bit control idea. But you can see it can get even really small if you're talking about something like the unit of measure currency conversion stuff where you're multiplying or dividing to get to your base currency. But it's, again, just a minor detail, easy to flip those switches. Let's see, what else do I have here? Visible or hidden. I did reference that. That applies, again, to all these fields. I sort of interrupted myself, which I tend to do. I apologize for that, which I also tend to do. Apologize. The line detail here has not changed. Again, different sort of tab, not the traditional data entry tab, and documents images tab. But you see, we're down, I think it was 6 in the original version of the system. If you had no custom tabs, it would be 6 tabs. We're down to 4. Some people may say, let's just get it down to 3. The lines and documents and images are probably not going anywhere, but you could consolidate this if a lot of this information is not necessarily relevant to you guys, and just maybe give me an order remarks tab, or give me an order remarks field here, and payment terms, because that's a vital thing. I think, in fact, I think payment terms is something that could, in the truly new default that gets out within the next week or so, payment terms could end up in the other tab, but I don't want to, we're talking about, messing with those that are doing data entry, messing with them in such a way that this is supposed to be a positive. You don't want to bring on too much change at once and just have the world turn upside down, because where's my field? Where did my field go? So, little bits and pieces might be the way to go about implementing these changes rather than all at once, if that's your choosing. So that's the changes that we're seeing now on the PO screen. Again, back to some of the other things that we can do. I talked about visible or hidden. That applies to all screens. If things are hidden, you're not going to have a big ugly space in between additional charges. In the example I talked about earlier, between additional charges. I should say VISCO info and payment terms. That will be consolidated. You'll have enough space to go through each one. Now the tab thing, I noticed this I think was pretty much rectified over the years. But early on, 7 or 8 years ago when I was supporting this, people used to complain about the tab order being a problem. That has been rectified throughout. You can see just tab will go down and then over to the other side. And I don't know if you guys know this, but shift tab goes backwards, by the way. Cool little thing. If you're a person who prefers data entry through tabbing, through strictly keyboard use, this is a lot more easy to use, I think, in that way as well, because you've got so many fields on one of our tabs, and you can actually tab through them using the tab key on the keyboard. Yeah, password fields, kind of an interesting thing. Now this isn't necessarily tied to this, but it is. There has been a change in that any field now can be a password field, which is, if you've seen the login, the login screen has the password field where you're typing in and no one can see what you're typing in. That is now, as of this release, available for any field in the system. So we could apply that same logic. I think, for example, is it Global Plastics? I don't recall who actually. Somebody has a sort of password field entry on their override code or something like that on their screens now that that could be a password field. It is not currently. I did discuss in some detail the spacing, scrolling, and sizing things, the width, the heights. All the text boxes we can control heights on as well. So if you want this to just be a small little thing that you've got only 4 or 5 lines of text and not this huge thing, because you really want to bring this down to just one tab on the shorter screen, we can do that as well. So it's not just a matter of control width and height. A couple of the points about spacing, and I should say scrolling, and those sorts of things. I mentioned earlier that on this particular version, it's in resolution is set the way it is, or maybe it's the projector actually, but there is a little tiny bit of horizontal scrolling that can be modified through widths. That is one of the things that is actually controlled more easily almost than anything else really at this point, is to be able to get it to just look right. You know what I mean? Like playing with these things and having them look right. Again, on my screen, my resolution was the easiest thing to do, just because you have the ability to control widths, you have the ability to put fields in various order, and whatever feels right, you know, and looks right is what should end up being the one that the version of the system that you use. Now, this does get to a point that I think we're going to talk about a little bit more tomorrow morning, which is how does this affect support? And you know, it's gonna be a little interesting at first as our team relearns. Now, obviously, everyone has known this is coming, but as our team relearns how to support in an even more dynamic way than we already are, because I heard a conversation earlier about 2 people saying our system is highly customized. I think probably 75, if not 80% of you guys would agree with that statement, that your version of the system is highly customized. And we're proud that we're able to do that. I mean, that's a huge part of what we're doing, is to be able to turn you know, a base package into something totally different for people, you know, at a reasonable cost, to mold the system to meet your needs, terminology-wise, functionality-wise, and so forth. But that customization, those changes have come at a support cost, perhaps, in that it would be much easier for a person of support to be able to look at the exact same screen on everyone's install when they're doing a log meeting or whatever other support method they're using. But that is unrealistic for us, and we've recognized that from the very beginning. This adds another layer to that, because we're literally talking about moving fields all over the place. So if you guys were getting sick of doing log meetings before to work on support, then I'm very sorry, but you're going to have to do about 10 times more now, because we will probably, and again, Erin will touch on this tomorrow. Hey, Erin. Good to see you. For those who've never met Erin, she is the one in camel. I mean, the dress back there. She just waved.
Camel?
It's not camel. What is it? It's some print. The print. Leopard print? I don't know. So support, log means, all those kinds of things. Again, Erin will touch on this in quite a bit more detail tomorrow morning, but it is going to get interesting at first, just because we're going to have to start to familiarize ourselves with how to support this level of customizability, modification, this level of difference, the variation between the systems. There's no more assuming. There was never any assuming. We tried it in the support realm, Tim and I instilled that you don't make any assumptions. We've all heard the old adage. I won't curse here and repeat it, but that support, you know, if you can bear with whatever we're going to bring to the table, is going to get interesting at first. I think just because our expectations of where fields will be could be totally altered from the reality of what you guys are working with now. Again, hopefully the transition is smooth, because we've all sort of been versed in the idea that this is going to be totally different, and we have to just go in with an acknowledgement of your industry, your products, your use, your style of support, those kinds of things. Go in knowing that, and respect the fact that the system has many variations and can do something totally different, and sort of look at it from that angle. So that's we'll see how that goes.